As we jump in this morning, I want you to imagine that you're leaving a store on a Saturday afternoon. Your arms are full of bags, and you notice a woman sitting on a curb near the exit. She has a toddler kind of there on her hip. She's got a stroller with a busted wheel. She's crying as she's trying to figure out how she's going to get everything home. And your first instinct is compassion. Real compassion. Something in you softens right away. And then just as fast, your brain starts working the problem for you because somebody else is probably helping her. You don't really have any cash on you anyways. There's frozen groceries and they're gonna be melting in the car, and so you really don't have time to stop right now. And what if this situation isn't even really what it looks like? And by the time you've gotten all of your groceries loaded into the car, you've built a pretty solid case for why it isn't really your job to stop and help. And you drive home telling yourself that you felt bad for her, which is true, because you did feel bad for her. You just didn't do anything about it. Now, here's the part that should bother us, because in that scenario, nothing about, whether it's you or whether it's me, nothing about our theology changed in that moment. We'd still pass a doctrinal quiz on the love of God. We just didn't move in that actual situation. Because we're pretty good at compassion as a feeling. We see something hard on the news, and something inside of us actually aches. We're not quite so desensitized to it yet that we don't feel it. We feel something. We watch a video of someone's kindness that goes viral, and we share it, and we feel connected for a moment to something good, and we pray for people that we'll never meet. Now, in season 2, I believe it was, of Ted Lasso, there was a scene that got at this really just about as well as anything. And so Sam Obisanya is one of the players, and he asked Ted with total sincerity why it is that so many dogs end up being put down in American shelters. And Ted's answer, in his dry wit as always, he says is that it's something a lot of female singer-songwriters have dedicated themselves to fixing. And it's a joke, and it's funny because it's also true. We all sit through the tear-jerking commercials that are set to a sad piano ballad. We feel something kind of crack open in our chest, and then we change the channel 2 minutes later, and we've done nothing about what we actually feel. All of that is real. None of it is nothing, but there's a wide gap between a heart that is moved and a life that moves. Feeling compassion costs us almost nothing. But acting on it can cost us something pretty much every time, whether it's time or money or comfort, and again, maybe the 15 minutes that we just didn't budget for dealing with that situation. And think about how easy it is to feel like you've done something without actually doing something. We can put a broken heart emoji on someone's devastating news story and feel like we have participated in the grief that we've never really actually carried. We can add a name to a prayer list, and if we're not careful, never follow up once to actually check on what's happening on that prayer request. That's easy to do for sure. We can watch a documentary about hunger, about human trafficking, about homelessness, and we can feel genuinely wrecked by it. And then we go make dinner and not think about it again. And none of those things are necessarily wrong on their own, but somewhere along the way, the danger is we started treating the feeling as the finish line instead of the starting line. It's easy to decide that feeling something counts as doing something. Let me say that one again. It's easy to decide that feeling something counts as doing something. And Jesus tells a story about exactly this gap. And it's not a gentle one. It's actually at the end of his teaching before we get into the whole crucifixion story, basically, leading up to that. And it's about who actually gets it and who doesn't. And the line that he draws isn't probably where most of us would expect it. So we're going to be in Matthew 25. And again, this is really in that last section of Jesus' teaching before his arrest, and it's a picture of final judgment, sheep on one side, goats on the other. So Matthew 25, starting in verse 31. It says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people from one another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. So right here, everyone gets sorted. Every nation, every person, they're standing in front of the king. And here is really kind of the first thing that's worth noticing in that moment. Jesus doesn't say here that he will separate people by what they believed about him. We're going to get into what he does say in that moment. He doesn't say it's based on a doctrinal statement. Do they know the right words to say in that moment? He separates them by something entirely different. Verse 34, then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. So he has a list of 6 things here. There's food, there's water, there's welcome, there's clothes, there's a presence with the sick, and a visit to the prisoner. None of it on its own is all that heroic. None of it requires a seminary degree or a mission trip. It's just ordinary mercy extended to the ordinary person standing right in front of us. Pick up in verse 37. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me. Now look at their mindset here, at their response. They're not being modest, they're genuinely surprised. They're caught off guard in this moment. When did we see you? Like, when did this happen? Surely we would have realized it if we had seen you and you were hungry or you were thirsty or you needed clothing or you needed like any of those things. Surely we would have seen that when that happened. They weren't worried about like keeping a ledger. They weren't worried about racking up righteousness points, stopping at every curb thinking this one's for Jesus. They just lived this way. Mercy had become instinct for them, not performance. And that's really kind of the first surprise in the story. The people who get it right don't know that they're getting it right. And so you think about that again. The people that get it right don't know that they're getting it right. Jesus tells them why plainly. Because again, he says, whatever you did for one of the least of these, you did it for me. He doesn't just approve of mercy from a distance, he puts himself inside it. The hungry person, the stranger, the prisoner, that's not just someone cares about. In this text, it says it's who Jesus actually is, that it's as if he is embodied by those who are in that situation. Picking up in verse 41, then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me. They also will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothing or sick or in prison and did not help you? Fair questions. Again, Jesus, if we had seen you in that state, surely we would have done something to help you. But he will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. So what's interesting in the story here, though, is Jesus doesn't accuse them of cruelty. He doesn't say that they mocked the hungry. He didn't say that they mistreated the prisoner. Their sin was in one way smaller than that, and yet it was somehow more familiar. They just didn't notice. They walked past. They felt whatever a person feels seeing need up close, and then they just kept walking. So when you really think about it, the goats aren't villains in the story. They're just people who meant well and never got around to it. They should stop, that should stop really every one of us in our tracks, because most of us, for the most part, I look around this room and I think about those who are probably watching online. I don't see anybody in here that I go, they enjoy cruelty. They enjoy being mean to people. Like, they look for opportunities for there to be people in need and be able to laugh at them and say, ha ha ha, look at you, I'm not gonna help you. Like, that's not the danger that I see here in our place, among us here. We're tempted instead towards distraction, towards a reasonable excuse, towards telling ourselves that we'll help next time when things settle down and when we have more margin. And what's sobering about this is that the goats in the story probably would have told you that they loved and cared about people. They probably would have passed a survey about compassion with flying colors. Ask them in a moment, put their hand on their heart, do you care about the hungry, about the stranger, about the prisoner? And most of them would have said yes without hesitating. Their failure wasn't a failure of their beliefs. It was the failure of noticing, and then the failure of not following through on what they noticed. And the gap, again, is exactly which is really kind of where we live a lot of the time. And that's what, again, makes this parable so unsettling and so important for us to hear as we keep discovering who Jesus actually is. That this isn't a footnote in his teaching. Again, it's not just some random day along the way. This is Jesus, a couple chapters later, and we're at the ascension. Like, that's where we are in the story. Like, we're right at the end of what Jesus has going on. The cross is coming, and the next page, the next 2 pages that's there. And in that moment, this is how he chose to describe the final judgment and the moment that matters more than any other moment. And he fills it not with a question about what people believe, but with a question about who they noticed and what they did about it. The kingdom Jesus announced that we talked about last week, the one that's already here, that's closer and bigger than we thought, this is what it actually looks like walking around in ordinary, everyday life. It looks like food that is given to someone who's hungry. It looks like holding a door open for a stranger. It looks like showing up in a hospital room or a jail visitation window for someone the world has stopped noticing. The kingdom doesn't just feel for the hurting, it moves towards them. So let's get practical. Who is the person you have been feeling something about but haven't moved towards yet? That there's just somebody and they've been on your mind and they pop up and you kind of think about it and then you're busy and you go on and then you forget when you have a chance to actually do something about it. Who is that? Maybe it's not something dramatic. Maybe it's just the neighbor whose yard has gone unmowed for weeks and you've wondered if there's something that's wrong, but you haven't really just knocked on the door to find out. Maybe it's the coworker who's going through a divorce that you've been meaning to check in on. Maybe it's the person at church that you noticed that they've sat alone for a couple of weeks. Maybe it's simply this. Maybe you felt a tug towards serving somewhere and you've let that tug pass every single week for months, telling yourself that you'll sign up once the schedule calms down. Whatever it is, don't wait for the feeling to get stronger, because it may not. Feelings fade the same day unless we actually have something that turns them into action first. So here's the takeaway, the really big takeaway for today's message. Turn one feeling this week, turn one feeling into action. You don't have to solve poverty or fix the foster care system by Friday, because that's not gonna happen. But you can do one thing that makes a difference in the life of one person. and it starts a pattern that's there. Again, we just have to stop being people who feel compassion and stop there, and start instead being people who actually move. Our church has several opportunities here, and we have several opportunities of people that we partner with that are easy places to take those steps. Our little food pantry, we talk about an opportunity, those that are in need of food. We have people that walk onto our property every single day of the week because they need food. And they know that right out there, they can go to a box and there's something there. And you know what that takes? It takes a team of people that come up every single day. They take turns, and somebody goes and checks the box to see what they need, and they go upstairs and they grab some stuff and they take it out there and they put it in there. It also takes some people who help provide those, both the things and the money to be able to get the things that we need to be able to do that. There's street side showers that we've talked about. And again, it could be going out and serving them on site. It could be gathering supplies that they need. It could be asking where they need help when they're sorting clothes. A number of opportunities there. The Community Food Pantry of McKinney, again, this is a larger way to be able to help address the food situation. Go follow them on Facebook. I'm trying to remember if they're on Instagram as well or not, but you go follow them on Facebook, they will post when they have needs. Now, they always have some need, but they'll say, you know what, we are running out of this following thing. And you could go, you know what, I could go get some of that one thing, and you can help meet a specific need that they have. Common Good, and Tim's gonna share about how they did when they had their pop-up sale here last Saturday. Do you know what that cost for us to have them here? There's a possum running along the side of the building, by the way, if you're wondering what everybody's looking at. You know what it cost us for Common Good to do their pop-up sale here on Saturday? We opened the door. I came up here and I was in my office. I kind of walked out for a little bit, but again, I was kind of keeping my distance too. And I was here while it was going on. A couple people came in the building and went to the restroom. We turned the air down a little bit in the common areas just in case somebody came through. I don't know that they even plugged in their iPads that they used for their point of sale. That's what it cost our church to provide a place for them to be able to do a pop-up sale that did extremely well, that was also serve families getting ready for back to school among those that had other needs and be able to do that. Do you know what we got out of it, by the way, is a kind of a tangible thing too? Every promotion that they did for that event, they had our address, and almost every one of them, it had our church name on it, that thing was hosted here. Now, we didn't do it for that reason, but something as simple as that helped a ministry that was able to deal with some things on clothing side, but really they take the proceeds from that, they take it over to the medical side, and they're able to help medical needs that people have. So it can look like that. Samaritan Inn. These are places where the hungry, where the stranger and the overlooked are already, their needs are already being helped, taken care of by people from our congregation and people in our community. It's easy ways to be able to find somewhere to plug in. So if you don't know where to start, you could start with one of those. Show up once, ask someone what they need. Let it become instinct instead of intention. Now, for those who don't know Christ yet, you're still kind of trying to figure out what you believe about Jesus. Here's something worth wrestling with. A lot of people have come to know Jesus this way first. Not through an argument that convinced them, but through kindness that someone showed to them. A meal, a ride, someone who showed up when they didn't have to. You don't have to have your theology figured out to receive one of those things, or even to be the person that gives one of those things. And so maybe for all of us, we have somebody in mind, or maybe you're that someone. There is a place to be able to wrestle with what you believe about God, but also to experience his love in action. So come find out who he actually is. Now, imagine if our church became known first for the mercy that people experienced from us, not the beliefs that they had to have to feel like they could belong. Imagine if the first thing that McKinney thought of when they heard the name Community North wasn't about a worship style, it wasn't about a property, it wasn't about a sermon series, but it was a memory of somebody that showed up and fed someone who was there in a moment of need, someone who didn't ask what someone else believed before they helped them in their moment of need. We are for McKinney because God is for McKinney, and that for McKinney it means so much more than a slogan on a couple of t-shirts that we have. It has to mean that we're the kind of people who don't just feel for the hurting, but we move towards them every single time that we get the opportunity. So let's not let another feeling pass by without turning it into something that is real. Let's go and be that kind of church. Let's pray together.